I guess there's no more room in hell because the dead are walking the earth. Today we're gonna be counting down the top 20 best zombie movies of all time. And I'm trying to stay really traditional with my definition of zombies, so we won't be talking about rage virus zombies, demon-possessed deadites, or thinking, speaking corpses that rise from a pet cemetery. We're sticking with mindless, flesh-eating, risen from the grave zombies. My name is Daniel with the Cobwebs channel, and let's get started.
Not dead? Are you mad?
Zombie!
White Zombie.
Number 20, White Zombie from 1932. This is actually the first feature-length zombie movie, so it's a really appropriate way to kick off this list, but I actually feel good about it in terms of just quality. Now, this is an example of a voodoo zombie, which is actually the origin of the legend, before George Romero changed everything, and we will get to that in a little bit. Zombies came from Haitian folklore, and they were created by practitioners of voodoo. Generally, one would kill someone with a special potion and then raise them back from the dead as a shell. And that's what this one is about, although unlike in Haitian folklore, this is being done by and to white people. So the title is very literal. It's literally White Zombie. In this case, the voodoo practitioner is played by Bela Lugosi, who's so much fun to watch here. He's very much playing a Dracula type character, except instead of turning people into vampires, he's turning them into zombies. But there's something more of a sense of humor about him here. He's fun, he's funny, he's like cool and confident in a spooky sort of way, all trying to lure this beautiful woman to him away from her fiance and doing it through zombie magic. So it's an interesting time capsule of what the zombie genre was before it evolved into what would become far, far more successful and what's going to dominate this list for the most part. White Zombie is an interesting flick.
Why don't you just kill the living?
19, Cemetery Man from 1994, also known as De la Morte de l'Amore. This is about a cemetery watchman who's tasked with dispatching the recently deceased when they rise from their graves. This is an Italian film directed by Michele Soave, but feels like one of the more accessible Italian movies to American audiences. It's starring an English-speaking actor, Rupert Everett, who's fantastic in the movie, and it almost feels like sort of a character piece just about him. This guy who's constantly having to deal with zombies in this cemetery, and a cemetery, a graveyard, is one of the most important locations that a zombie film can have. That's where the zombies are rising out of, and this has got some of the best graveyard atmosphere I've ever seen in my life. The film is extremely weird. It's almost a bit of a comedy if you have an incredibly sick, twisted, macabre sense of humor, which, let's be honest, a lot of us really, really do. So it's got some weird laughs to it. It's got a very sexy romance in here between a man and a woman, and the different incarnations of her, and maybe the zombie version of her too. Really weird stuff, but really cool. It's a beautiful looking movie. It's really interesting. And even though we are trying to stay traditional with our definition of zombies on this list, and this one fits it well enough, it's a really different and weird take on the genre. Number 18, Zombie Flesh Eaters from 1979. This is our first Lucio Fulci film on the list, who is a major player in the zombie genre, also known as Zombie Flesh Eaters or Zombie 2. This was marketed as a sequel to Dawn of the Dead, but Fulci claims he had no knowledge of that. And this is probably his most famous movie. It takes place on a Caribbean island where a doctor is trying to stem the tide of cannibal zombies that are returning from the dead. This is a really cool example of a zombie flick because it does utilize the origins of the monster of voodoo and Haitian folklore and such like that. But the zombies feel very much like Romero zombies. They are the kind of disgusting, rotting corpses that are walking around. And one thing you gotta look for anytime you watch any of these movies is what kind of level of makeup are we dealing with here? Because some films just have recently deceased corpses that just kind of get up and maybe they're just a little pale and dark around the eyes. And some movies go all out. And this is one of those where like every inch of these monsters is just covered in makeup, prosthetics, paper mache almost. It's gory. It's gross. The story isn't the best. And I don't think the characters and the script are particularly strong here. Even for a Fulci movie, I think he's done better later in his career. But it is the only movie on the list that has a zombie fighting a shark. And for that alone, it's gotta be here. 17, Shaun of the Dead. This is about a guy named Shaun who lives a very uneventful life which revolves around his girlfriend, his mother, and the local pub, but his routine is threatened when the dead return to life. Actually, a big part of the genre is zombie comedies. There are a lot of zombie comedies out there, and I can't say that I am personally a big fan of that. There's not a lot that I love. This one is easily the best. Shaun of the Dead is great. It's very, very fun. Directed, of course, by Edgar Wright, the start of his Cornetto trilogy. And while Shaun of the Dead is, controversially, my least favorite in that trilogy, I still really enjoy it. I think it's very funny. Throwing records at zombies. Simon Pegg and Nick Frost are hilarious, as is like the whole supporting cast around them. Everyone is great here. I actually think characters, protagonists, are more important for this category of horror than for most, because zombies, they're cool, they're fun, but they're not necessarily as interesting as vampires or werewolves or even ghosts are for me. So you gotta have great people that are trying to survive the zombie threat. And Shaun of the Dead does. It's actually a very sweet, almost like kind of wholesome movie, both about friendship between these two guys, but also his struggling relationship with his girlfriend. The emotional core is really important here, because even though it does have a lot of laughs, it takes the threat seriously. It's not all fun and games. There is some tense stuff, and you do fear for these characters and have some genuine emotional moments. But with all that said, I'm gonna go to the Winchester, have a nice cold pint, and wait for this all to blow over. Night of the Creeps from 1986. This one almost challenges my rule of having this list be about traditional zombies, because the reason there are zombies is very unique. Like, this is an alien horror film. It's about alien slugs that are invading a college campus, and once they get into a person, they take over the brain, kill you, and turn you into zombies. But even though the reason is very strange, these zombies are dead corpses that look and act exactly like a traditional zombie, until the head splits open, that is. And it's terrific. I love Night of the Creeps. It is such a fun 80s horror film that is another example of one that has great characters. It's also about a couple of kind of nerdy friends. Their friendship is legitimately heartfelt. Like, I really like this one scene where, you know, maybe slight spoilers, but one of them is trying to say goodbye to the other one, and the other one's like kind of listening to a recording, and it's a genuinely emotional moment. It's really, really strong. There's also a romance between the main guy, Jason Lively, and just a beautiful, adorable girl on his college campus, and watching them come together, and also her kind of come into her own as a zombie fighter with a flamethrower is pretty awesome. But none of this is near as good, makes the movie half as good as Tom Atkins does. Tom Atkins is the star, even above the crazy aliens and the zombies. He says to people, "Thrill me," but in the end, he was the one thrilling us all. I think that's beautiful. Night of the Living Dead from 1968. George Romero's debut film that absolutely rocked the world and is without a doubt the most important zombie movie ever made. So why is it my number 15? Honestly, I'm kind of offending myself by even saying that. So if you're offended by this, I get it. I'm kind of with you. I just can't deny that there are 14 movies that I like better. This is the landmark film that took the already existing zombie genre and completely changed it forever. Taking away the voodoo, taking away most of any reason, even though the movie kind of hints at there being a reason for the zombies, and just having corpses rise out of their graves and eat human flesh. It's such a game-changing film that even George Romero didn't know he was doing that. He was just making a ghoul film. He didn't even think of them as zombies. And why would he? I mean, zombies were not this in the 1960s, but culture ended up running with it, and this became the zombie genre. I think I just love it less than a lot of other movies because it is a little bit lighter on story by design. It's a very simple thing of people just trying to survive in a house when there are zombies outside. And while I do love the character of Ben, played by Dwayne Jones, and Harry is an interesting character, and he's very much a template character. Like most every zombie movie needs that jerk guy who's just kind of holding things back through all of his arguing. I don't love a lot of characters in this, but I think the movie succeeds so much on its creepiness, because even when I watch the remake from the 90s, which is not going to be on this list because I'm not that big a fan of it, it's so close to this movie, it's almost a shot-for-shot remake with really just the exception of one character. but it does not have the almost otherworldly, eerie, creepy factor that this one does. That's a special thing that's not easy to do. Number 14, The Living Dead at Manchester Morgue from 1974. Also known by the title Let Sleeping Corpses Lie, this is an Italian and Spanish co-production, although it takes place in England. I think when people watch zombie movies today, nobody really cares what the reason is for the zombies, why the corpses are getting up. I think it's like faded away as a big factor with this genre. But this is one that makes a big deal out of the reasons, and it's about this ultrasonic radiation machine that's being used for agriculture that's now making the dead rise up. And this is one that, of course, came out not too long after Night of the Living Dead, and it feels very influenced by it. It's just a bigger, badder, grosser version of it, and I love it. I think it's an absolute blast. The characters here are strong enough, but they're not terribly lovable or fascinating. But the zombies are done so well. They don't look like rotting corpses. They are the recently deceased. The reason for the zombies actually makes a big deal of that. But whenever they come on screen, the sound design is so powerful. There's just this deep, guttural, breathing, moaning that dominates every bit of your sound system when you watch it. And it's so creepy. It makes the zombie such a terrifying presence. And the gore is gross, very disgusting, flesh, organ-eating, bloody mess. It's great. It's like a fun movie for a horror fan to settle into, but then get grossed out at the same time. I love this. Dawn of the Dead from 2004, about a group of survivors who take refuge in a shopping mall after the world is taken over by zombies. Of course, this is the remake of George Romero's classic that we'll talk about later on this list, directed by Zack Snyder and written by James Gunn. And I actually just rewatched this movie last night for the first time in a few years, and man, I loved this. This is such an awesome movie. Something that really stands out to me about this is it is an action-packed horror movie, almost like it's an action film, but it's still scary. And like, movies never accomplish that. Like, action horror films are never scary. And this one, it kind of serves both audiences incredibly well. This is also one of the landmark movies for fast zombies. It's not the first one to do it. 28 Days Later kind of made it popular, even though most people would argue they're not zombies, and we're not including that on this list. And true, I like slow zombies better. I think they're more atmospheric. I love the idea that you could just find a slow zombie, and it's not a big threat. It's probably not going to get you, but it's just a creepy atmosphere to have this corpse just walking around over there. And then as soon as there are a bunch of them, that's when things get intense. But with this one, it's intense every single time. It's not my favorite, but it's done so well. This is another example of the importance of characters in a zombie movie. I love the characters here. The actors are so great. Sarah Polley, Ving Rhames, Jake Weber, who I think is such an underrated actor and is so likable here. Everyone is interesting, memorable, you care about them, but the movie does not allow that to hold back the carnage, because there are gut-wrenching deaths, horrible gore, zombie babies. This has got it all. The 2000s had a ton of horror remakes, and this is in contention for the best of them. I Walked with a Zombie from 1943. This is about a nurse in the Caribbean who turns to voodoo practices in hopes of curing her patient, a mindless woman with whose husband she's fallen in love with. This is a Val Lewton film, who was a producer, writer back in the 1940s who spearheaded a lot of different horror films. And this one is my very favorite. All of his movies are very subtle, and this one certainly is. And if you go into this expecting a modern kind of zombie movie, absolutely don't. It will disappoint you. George Romero had not revolutionized this yet, but even by voodoo zombie films, it's still a really subtle version. But it feels very realistic. It treats the voodoo practices, the island people, very respectfully in a way that it feels more real. And it has a really beautiful emotional core to it, a romance to it. It's almost like Jane Eyre on a zombie island. There's some black and white classic horror films that I feel like I could recommend to anyone. Frankenstein, The Wolfman, who wouldn't love those? This is one I think you might have to be a classic film fan. But if you are, I think this is a beautiful movie. It's very emotional, but still very creepy example of the early version of zombies.
What is this, trick or treat?
Night of the Comet.
Just outside the top 10, Night of the Comet from 1984. Now, this is where the ranking here gets kind of tricky. It's mostly a ranking based on my personal preference, but I did factor in a little bit the satisfyingness of an example of a zombie film. And this is one that, on pure quality, would be much higher because I love this movie. It's truly one of my favorite films of all time. But the zombie stuff is just not that important. It's one factor. This is a post-apocalyptic horror film because of a comet hitting the Earth, wiping out most of the population. And some people have been turned into zombies. And two Valley girls are having to deal with that. There are some intense sequences where they have to get away from zombies, fight against zombies. But it's a little bit more about just existing in the world when there's no one else there. It's about the character relationships. And even the biggest threat in the movie is a group of scientists that they meet. So zombies are there. It's a pure example of zombies. They're just not that important, but I do love this film. It is so 80s. If you love 80s movies, this is one of the most 80s movies I've ever seen in my life. I love the two lead actresses, Catherine Mary Stewart, Kelly Maroney. They are so much fun to watch in a almost wish fulfillment kind of situation. Nobody wants the world to end. Nobody wants most of the world's population to die. But if you could just exist in a city when you're the only one there, a last man on earth kind of a situation, it's a fun atmosphere to experience a movie in, especially when the movie looks this good and has an 80s soundtrack this great.
Woe be unto him who opens one of the 7 gateways to hell.
Cracking into the top 10, The Beyond from 1981. It's about a young woman who inherits an old hotel in Louisiana where, following a series of supernatural occurrences, she learns the building was built over one of the gateways to hell. Another Italian film directed by Lucio Fulci, the middle chapter in his Gates of Hell trilogy. All about a gateway to hell opening, usually about zombies. This is another one that's very much a zombie film, but it's about more than just zombies. This gateway to hell, to the beyond, is a little bit more important, and the zombies are a result of that, a symptom of that, the dead getting up and walking. It's those classic kind of Fulci zombies that look absolutely disgusting. It's got repulsive gore in it, but I love Fulci Italian gore. It's very heightened. It doesn't feel realistic to me. It just feels fun. And this one has an amazing score. It's got really creepy set pieces. This gate to hell just causing the most bizarre, horrific things to happen, like tarantulas eating somebody alive for 8 minutes straight. It's crazy. And I even like the lead here, played by Catriona MacColl, who's the lead in all of the Gates of Hell films. So Fulci, he's just one of my favorites, and The Beyond is one of his best movies.
These poor dead bastards crave brains.
Number 9, Return of the Living Dead 3 from 1993. After 2 films in the series were incredibly similar, this one took the franchise in a drastically different direction. Still about zombies rising from the dead because of trioxin, but having a much darker and much more emotional tone and story about a young couple who's very much in love, and when the woman dies in a horrible accident, her boyfriend brings her back from the dead. And Return of the Living Dead is a really interesting take on zombies. They're not quite as mindless. They are people who rise from the dead and go completely insane out of hunger, the need to eat brains. And her transformation into a zombie is very slow and gradual, and she does everything she can to try to hold it off before she becomes fully undead. And that slow transformation, it's unique for the genre, and it's really cool. It's very creepy and unsettling, and the emotional core to this film is genuinely beautiful. You really do care about these characters, and it makes it so tragic. But still, the special effects here are amazing. It is a brutal, gory, disgusting kind of movie with zombies that they're some of the most creative looking zombies I've ever seen. It's directed by Brian Yuzna, who tends to be great at this kind of movie, and this is probably his best film. But that leads right into number 8, The Return of the Living Dead from 1985. While sometimes I think I prefer 3 because of its emotional aspect, this is one that is undoubtedly like the better zombie movie. It's one of the perfect examples of exactly what zombie movies do best. It is a bit of a horror comedy. It's got a light, fun, witty tone to it, and it uses Night of the Living Dead, the actual movie, as a springboard to explain why this gas is released and reanimates corpses into flesh-eating zombies. The characters here are certainly not deep. They're all painted with a very broad brush, but man, does the cast make it work. This movie it's like a dream team if you're into 80s cult movies, with Clu Gallagher and Tom Matthews, Linnea Quigley, James Karen. Like, I just love these people. They're also funny to watch, and these are some of the best looking zombies you will ever see in your life. I mean, not just the skeleton rising from the grave, do you want a party moment, which is amazing, but the Tar Man might actually be my favorite zombie of all time. Just the visual of the Tar Man. He's the coolest zombie ever. He is amazing. One of my favorite 80s practical effects. And more zombie movies should use this much puppetry. I love puppetry in a zombie movie being used to accomplish levels of decayed corpses that a human actor could never do. And this is one of the greatest examples of it of all time.
Herbert West has effected reanimation in dead animal tissue.
It will scare you to pieces.
Number 7, Re-Animator from 1985. Scientist Herbert West reveals to a fellow graduate student his groundbreaking work concerning the reanimation of fresh corpses. Based on the works of H.P. Lovecraft, this is one that almost challenges the definition of a zombie movie, because I do think its first genre placement is it's a mad scientist movie. And Jeffrey Combs is one of the greatest mad scientists in the history of cinema. Herbert West is so fun to watch, but he's really well offset by Bruce Abbott as the straight man character, the audience surrogate character who brings us into Herbert West's insane world. And that's not even to talk about Barbara Crampton. I mean, even more than Return of the Living Dead, this is one of the greatest casts for 80s cult fans. But even though it's unconventional, it's definitely a zombie movie. It's all about those corpses getting up, rising from the grave. And these are not slow, lumbering zombies. These are zombies that launch into action. They are strong. They are powerful. They will jump at you, throw you around. And the gore here is absolutely insane. Stuart Gordon was just a master of crazy, heightened cult movies. And this is one of the greatest examples of that. It's so gross, disgusting, off-putting, but because you get to care about these characters, you buy into them, it always feels impactful. It never just feels like zaniness for zaniness' sake. Zaninesses, is that a word? Even though sometimes I forget how much I love this one, because I do prefer From Beyond. I love its really weird creative story. This one, it's weird to call this conventional. It's more conventional than From Beyond, but it's still one of the craziest cult films of all time. Number 6, Train to Busan from 2016. This is a South Korean film about a zombie outbreak that spreads on a high-speed train, and the passengers must fight to survive. One thing you may notice on this list is I am definitely partial to older zombie movies. I don't know how to explain it. That's just where my preference lies with this genre. But Train to Busan is my favorite modern zombie film, and it's also my favorite fast zombie film. Really, because this is so emotional. It has such a beautiful core at the center about fatherhood. It's about a workaholic father who has to realize what's important in life in the middle of a horrible situation. It has to fight with everything he has to protect and save his daughter along the way. And there's even another father character who has a wife who's expecting, and he becomes like a great character throughout this too. It's so emotional. It's got one of the most gut-punching endings of all time. This thing emotionally wrecked me by the end when I first saw it, but also it's very intense. It's very scary. It has got monstrous, incredibly fast, savage zombies in it. So you've got so many really memorable, incredibly intense sequences. And how many horror films can you say are scary and gross and gory, but also like life-affirming and uplifting? That's a pretty amazing combination. Train to Busan is amazing.
Someone in this village is practicing witchcraft. That corpse wandering on the moors is
An undead, a zombie.
Kicking off the top 5, The Plague of the Zombies from 1966. Now, if we're just talking about my emotional love for these movies, I would rank this one higher. This is one of my favorite films of all time. I'm a nut job for Hammer horror. I just adore Hammer horror films so much. And this one's one of my favorites. It's actually the movie that really made me realize how much I love Hammer. And it's not just that I love Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, because this one does not have Peter Cushing or Christopher Lee, but it still ended up being, man, a movie that I just went crazy for. It is so enjoyable. I love watching Andre Morel as Sir James Forbes, who's basically the Van Helsing character, who's going up against this squire played by John Carson, who's basically the Dracula of the movie. This is kind of a Dracula knockoff, with this guy turning people into zombies instead of vampires. But as a zombie film, I genuinely think it is so important and so influential, and it never gets that credit. The zombies look amazing here with their green, rotting skin. The makeup looks so good. And zombies had never looked like this in movies before this. Like, I really think this is some groundbreaking stuff. And there's also this really creepy sequence where they're bursting out of their graves. And Night of the Living Dead gets so much credit. It absolutely should. But this one deserves some too. I think this is one of the landmark moments in the zombie genre that directly led to Night of the Living Dead. I love the characters here. I think the story is fun, interesting, fast moving. This thing never bores me for a second. And while it doesn't have the gore that Night of the Living Dead would make so important with this genre, the look of the zombies and the creepiness of them, the creepy atmosphere of them being around, I think totally makes up for it.
George A. Romero's Day of the Dead.
Number 4, Day of the Dead from 1985. This is George Romero's third zombie movie. The origins of this are very interesting, and George Romero wanted to make it a much bigger, more ambitious, grandiose film. He actually called it the Gone with the Wind of zombie movies, but he wouldn't accept an R rating. He would only release this thing unrated so he could have as much gore as he wanted. So the budget got way cut down, and it ended up being mostly about people underground, a lot of people just talking. And it's remarkable that it turned out as good as it is. I think this is awesome. It is such a great ticking time bomb of a movie where maybe some people could call it slow. There's a lot of long conversations here, but it just feels like all the tension is building and building and building. And when it explodes, man, does it go off, because the gore here is the best zombie gore of all time. This is another one that I just rewatched, and I was just marveling at the gore effects. I've never seen better. I've never seen better. And people often talk about how it's weird that special effects don't necessarily seem to be improving right now. Like, even CGI seems like it was better 20 years ago, and practical effects are really good now, but they're not quite this good. And I think a lot of folks forget that special effects are art. It's not just science. It's not just technology. And you do need a really good artist behind them. And Tom Savini is an amazing artist. And what he accomplished here boggles my mind. It's actually kind of breaking my heart that I know I can't show any of this gore in this video because the video will get demonetized, but just go watch Day of the Dead. Trust me on this. Yeah, it's intense and violent and the story works, but also the ideas behind it about the evolution of zombies and can they be trained? Can they become more human? It's all fascinating stuff, and it just makes this so entertaining from start to finish.
Party's over.
Dead Alive.
Number 3, Dead Alive from 1992, also known as Brain Dead. This is a Peter Jackson directed New Zealand film about a man who discovers his overbearing mother has turned into a zombie and tries to control the situation of her killing and turning the whole town into the undead. So this is one I first saw many years ago. I actually rented it through Netflix DVD. And I will admit, I didn't particularly care for it. And the reason was the gore was too much for me. At that time, it was just too much and it put me off. But I gave it another chance before making this video. I've evolved in my appreciation of and tolerance of gore quite a bit since then. And I thought it was a perfect film. It is awesome. I loved it so much. This is another one with great characters, one that paints with very broad brushes, but makes the characters so lovable that it works 100%. Lionel is such a sweet, good-hearted guy to follow through this movie, but Paquinta really steals the show as this woman who really just decides, this is the guy for me, I'm just gonna go after him and we're just gonna be a thing and that's it. And she's like abrasive, but in an adorable way, and she's so cute and fun to watch, just love her. But the zombie content is insane. It's beyond insane. There's no adjective for it. Maniacal, diabolical, the level of gore on screen. But because it has such a fun and funny tone, and there are multiple laugh out loud moments that I think are just hysterically funny.
I kick ass for the Lord.
It stays fun. I mean, once you've brought out a lawnmower to fight zombies, you've crossed every line imaginable, and it's just gleeful fun at that point. And that's not even to talk about the baby. The baby, one of the greatest characters in cinema history. I think we can all agree on that. Dead Alive is a rock show of a horror comedy. It's hilarious. It's horrific, disgusting, has incredibly creative zombie and monster designs on screen, and all the while being a genuinely heartfelt, warm-hearted movie about love. It's amazing. It is a really difficult movie to get a hold of for some reason, but the uncut version might just be on this very platform. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying. The runner-up, City of the Living Dead from 1980. This is my favorite Lucio Fulci zombie movie and possibly my favorite Italian horror film of all time. This is the one that kicked off his Gates of Hell trilogy, and it's about a blasphemous act opening a gate of hell on Earth and allowing the dead to overtake the Earth. This definitely is a zombie film. You've got a lot of zombies in here. They look scary. They're very unsettling presences. But another one where the zombies aren't necessarily the only important thing. This is a cosmic horror film, and it's one that's very influenced by H.P. Lovecraft. And I love how City of the Living Dead is about the essence of evil coming into our world through a literal gateway to hell and infecting everything, the atmosphere, the people, the corpses that now rise up. Even just these bizarre occurrences happening, like there being a storm that blows maggots all over people. Pestilence, just like demonic evil everywhere. And the zombies are a byproduct of it. And I do think when it's towards the end of the film, when they're going into a cemetery, into this crypt, and it really feels like one of the greatest representations of hell visually that I've ever seen, with just so many zombies around, unexplainable horrors. Unexplainable horrors. That's like the way to describe this first and foremost. It's a huge favorite for me. Yes, it's very weird. It's got that offbeat Italian dubbing, but I even do really like the characters in this one more than most Italian horror films. And the zombie stuff I do think is satisfying, especially if you like to see zombies squish people's heads and then brains come out, because that happens a lot.
It gets up and kills. The people it kills get up and kill.
Dawn of the Dead.
But at number 1, Dawn of the Dead from 1978. One thing that's cool about the Dawn of the Dead movies, both this and the remake, is there is such an element of wish fulfillment to them. Yes, the situation that happens is horrible, it's horrific, but the idea of living with people in a mall and just having free reign of the mall, doing whatever you want in there, building a society in there, it's kind of cool. It's kind of fun. And both Dawn of the Dead movies get that and understand to include elements of fun and joyfulness. The characters here are so deep and interesting. And this is much longer than most horror films of its era. It's a little bit over 2 hours, depending on what cut you look at, that is. And it really just allows you to sink in and linger in this story with these people, exist in this world. As much as Night of the Living Dead was groundbreaking, I do think this one is. It really kicks up the gore to a level that had never been seen before and really launched us into the modern idea of what zombies are, even though nothing would touch the quality of this one. I mean, when I think about what's great about this epic movie, I think about that biker scene when the bikers come in and the way the scene builds and flows. It's amazing. It goes from like goofy comedy that's fun and funny to traditional men with guns action, all building up to the most horrific and savage and upsetting zombie gore that had ever been seen up to that point, and still is some of the best that has ever been seen. Man, I think it's one of the most perfect horror films ever made. Before I go, I just want to send out a massive thank you to my patrons who truly make this channel possible. If anyone else wants to support me this spooky season, there's always a link to my Patreon in the description below. And I want to give a special shout out to Colin Solomon, Samuel Lopez, and Alan Kolchak 73. You guys are the absolute best. If you want checking these out for yourself, I do have streaming options right here on the screen, but of course those are subject to change, so I also have physical media links in the description, and using those does help support the channel. But what's your list of top zombie movies? If you got a whole top 20 list, please let me know. I would love to hear it, and click the video on the screen if you want to hang out with me more. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to enjoy yourselves today, have some fun, and I'll see you next time. Bye.